Good evening, class. Today we are going to be talking about verbs. Can anyone tell me what a verb is? Yes, Angie?
An action word.
Yes, it is an action word. So to start off our lesson, I have my student Liz up here, and she's going to alternate read with me. So the book is called Slide and Slurp, Scratch and Burp. Verbs are words like sneak and sniff, sneeze and seize, and wheeze and whiff.
Planting carrots, getting traction, verbs give sentences their action.
So what have we noticed about this book already? Liz?
There's a lot of verbs.
There is a lot of verbs. And what are they in this book? What do you see that's different about them than the rest of the words? What color are they?
Are they colorful?
They are. See, we have verb and words like, and then are is colorful. So throughout this book, the verbs are colored. You might be exploring the Alps or the Amazon, maybe restoring the chair that your grandma's on.
Knitting or hitting or roping or biting, verbs can make sentences very exciting.
They tell us of horses that nuzzled and nip, of bears as they guzzle, and birds as they sip.
They tell us of scooters both swerving and stopping, throws that are curving or sliding or dropping.
So wrap a package, tie a knot, clap your hands, or cry a lot. Triumph, tremble, trot, and trample. You'll use a verb for each example.
Fly to the flower shop, dash to the dance, swing by the swimming pool, frolic in France, soar to the circus and float to the fair. Without verbs, your sentence can't go anywhere.
Each sentence has a subject. It's kind of like the star. It's what the whole thing's about. Dave's dish, Mom's looks, Todd's car.
Subjects always need a verb. It's what makes fishes swim. And lanterns light, and writers write, and clippers cut and trim.
Some verbs aren't the action kind. They link instead of do. Connecting sentence parts as in, your dog appears quite blue.
These linking verbs connect a subject to a word or phrase. That's called a subject complement. It's done in lots of ways.
So what are we learning about verbs throughout this story? Are there all different kinds of verbs? Yeah, so what did this one talk about? It talked about they link instead of do. Does anybody know what that means? So the example was your dog appears quite blue. What is it linking?
The dog and his color.
And quite
Appearance.
blue. Mm-hmm. It became ridiculous. The strudel sure smells great. The crime remains a mystery. This place seems second rate. So a normal verb would be like jumping or hitting. A lot of them are ing words if you're using them in a sentence like that, but these are like remains, seems. It's what the person is doing, like where they're staying.
The forms of be are linking verbs, like are your name's Michelle. Were and was work this way too. There's forms of be as well.
I am Shannon, he is Mort. Were you the one who was in court? There are times a form of be is all that's needed verbally.
Whether you slide or you slip, if you should scream or you slurp, or you scratch, or you burp.
If you're making a fraction or writing a blurb, because there is action, you know it's a verb.
So if you should gloat, or you glisten, or listen, say to the chef, take that out and put this in. Whether you pounce, or perturb, I'm here to announce that you're using a verb.
So what is a verb? Do you know? Alina, what's a verb?
Verb is something what we do.
Yeah, an action, right? So if you're
Yeah.
jumping, writing, drawing, singing. Mike, what's a verb?
It's an action word.
Good. Liz, can you think of an action word that was in this book?
Cry.
Cry. Good job. So, we're going to go more in depth on our verbs. We have dull and vivid verbs. Liz, could you please go place those on the wood paneling, please? What do we think a dull verb is?
Boring word.
A boring verb, right? One that we use all the time, like jump, sing, walk, hit. So what do we think a vivid verb is?
Gives more description.
Yes. So, Angie helped me this morning, and she taped verbs over there, and you guys are going to go grab verbs, and as a class, you are going to decide together up in here if they're dull or vivid. So, everyone stand up and grab some verbs. And some of them might be confusing, but each of them have a pair. So you could have walk and another one. So you might have to adjust it after you put it up there. You guys can discuss. Think about what they go with. So you have look. What do you think goes with look? Does anyone have?
Stare.
Stare, good. And eat goes with?
Devour.
Nice. Think goes with? It's okay. What do we think goes with?
I'm sorry, think.
Oh, make.
Discover.
Or wonder,
Oh.
right?
Yeah.
Find.
Discover.
Yeah. So that was pretty easy, right?
Mhm.
Good. Everyone can go sit back down and we'll talk about our verbs. Thank you for your help. Liz, you can actually go back to your seat. You're done. Thank you for being my helper.
Yep.
Okay.
All my feet are asleep.
Right, so we learned that it's actually really easy to use vivid verbs instead of dull verbs, right? We just don't do it very often because these words are easier to use. They're more known in our vocabulary. They're the ones that come to mind. So what's a way that we can make our sentences or paragraphs more interesting? Can we write them and then maybe fill in our dull verbs with vivid verbs? Say I have a story where I wrote, I walked to the park. Liz, what word could I change?
Walked.
Good. What's another word for walk?
Skipped.
I skipped. That's another form of walking, right? I think up here we have strut, which can you picture someone strutting in your head? Yeah, it's a more descriptive version of walk. Do we think it's always a good thing to use vivid verbs? Should we always use them? What's the time we should use dull verbs? When should you use verbs that are easily understood when you're doing something?
When talking to little kids
When talking to little kids?
in a group.
In a group? How about when you're cooking? Do you want it to be confusing when you're cooking? You just want to say stir or whisk. You want it to give you, it's descriptive, but you want it to be simple. How about how to put something together? Do we want those to be dull verbs and easily understood verbs?
Yes.
Yes. All right. So what is a dull verb, Liz?
It's a boring, like, way to describe
And Angie, what is a vivid verb?
Something that gives more description, something we wouldn't say all the time.
Good. And which one's less commonly used most of the time in younger kids' writing?
Vivid.
Yes.
Verbs.
And Liz, how can we make them use vivid verbs more often? How can we encourage them to do it?
Use it more around them.
Yeah,
they
so
learn it.
maybe have something like this in our classroom, right? Have a dull verb chart and a vivid verb chart and have them go together so that the younger kids can understand, right? All right. Thank you for being my class.